I'd like to talk about a really interesting topic, something that I think about a lot, and maybe something that you'd find interesting as well. I want to talk about the future of marketing. And I think marketing has changed a lot. Now, if I'm pointing correctly, you'll probably see a red book on my wall, and that is one of the most valuable things I own. It's a reprint of a 125-year-old Sears catalog. And I think these guys were geniuses at copywriting. But and then you kind of, as time goes forward, you kind of have the Mad Men era and all of that good stuff. And I believe that up until very recently, and when I say very recently, I'm talking about like up until 2022, marketing has been this black magic kind of thing. There's this like secret society of marketers. They have a secret handshake, and they include people that are of a certain type, but then they exclude other marketers because if you don't fit into the mold. And that's kind of how marketing has been. And so the way people would kind of rise through the ranks of marketing is they would do campaigns, and they would do advertising campaigns and marketing campaigns, and retail concept campaigns, and there'd be a perception. A lot of it is consensus building, and the ones that could communicate and articulate their ideas and defend their views the best would the perception was that they were really, there would be this attribution like, oh, we tried this experiment, our sales went up by 10%. Clearly, James's ideas are wonderful. He was really persuasive about them, and he kind of stuck his neck out, and he must get promoted. And then, that whole cycle would follow. Now, let's contrast that with what I think the future of marketing is. And it's still not materialized. It's happening very gradually, but I think this is the undeniable future. Now, my background is I'm actually not a marketer. I never went to school for marketing. I've been always very fascinated by buyer psychology and understanding how people discover products and buy something for the very first time. That question has been very interesting to me, but I have an engineering background. And so I came into marketing. Now, because I don't look like a marketer, I don't have the credentials of a marketer, I would typically be outside of that inner circle because no one would have given me the opportunity. But then this wonderful kind of Trojan horse came about in 2005, 2006. It started getting familiar. It started getting popular, which is Google Analytics. And once analytics came into the picture, then this idea of measured marketing came in to the picture, which then led to CEOs saying, well, how do we know if it's a good idea? Let's A B test it. So, validated marketing came into the picture. And uh, so much was still happening that was not being measured that marketers didn't actually care. And but that little group of measured marketers. Now, there was a group of direct response marketers that always existed, but these guys were a very small minority of people. I believe there are like 350,000 marketers in the US, and I guarantee you less than 10,000 of them are direct response marketers. We're talking about a really small sample. But this measured marketing phenomena has really taken hold. And so now we have people that don't have traditional marketing backgrounds and traditional marketing credentials who are actually leading marketing campaigns for companies that actually believe in the validity or the evidence-based approach of statistical A/B testing. And this has changed fundamentally what a marketer how a marketer actually does exercises their craft, where previously it was all about consensus and people who were good communicators and were able to kind of build consensus were the ones that were able to launch their ideas, and then through some random attribution method with like increase in sales, it's a marketing campaign. Unless you're running it as a statistical A/B test, how do you know if the stuff that you're doing is directly correlating to increased sales? Now we have this other group that's kind of grown in importance, and we've kind of grown through the ranks. So this title of conversion rate optimizers is very prevalent. um, this means that I can run an experiment. I don't necessarily have to have the credentials. I can run an experiment, and if the hypothesis is strong and if the concept is strong, and if I can get a statistical winner, especially if I can get a reproducible winner, which means I get a winner and then I run the experiment again and it wins again, then it is irrefutable that my approach worked. And that has diminished the power of traditional CMOs. And I think this is going to have a fundamental impact on how we look at marketing. And one of the interesting aspects of this is traditionally, because there was so much uncertainty, there was actually a lot of reliance on research. So you would talk to customers, you would do extensive research, you would do focus groups to really understand why people buy a product, what their opinions are, what turns them on, what turns them off. My approach to conversion optimization, I actually don't do any research at all. So my idea is to kind of put together, like almost like Sherlock Holmes, put together a concept that is based on common sense and is kind of, based on a very specific type of buyer. I focus on skeptical first time buyers. And then what I do is I have an approach where I'll say, okay, even before I launch the test, I'll say, okay, I'm going to assume that this idea is a total flop and it's going to fail. What would I have done differently? And so I come up with a counter idea based on that same hypothesis for how I, assuming the hypothesis failed, what would I have done differently? Now, this is a genius strategy because it's almost like buying the stock for General Motors, but also shorting the stock for General Motors, where the cost of doing both is near zero, which means whether it goes up or down, I'm going to actually make a multiple of profits. And that approach, that strategic approach to A/B testing, means that I don't even have to rely on research. I don't even have to rely on being a great marketer. I just have to kind of be good at putting together a hypothesis and then coming up with alternate hypotheses that essentially are arguing against this hypothesis. And by just doing that, you actually can, you're almost certain, you're 100% certain to get a test winner. And I'm sharing this because I'm trying to draw attention to the fact that marketing is totally different and it's going to be even more different in the next 10 years. And it's not just about the technology, but it's a completely different skill set